Hi, I know I said that I would be here at 5 after 7. I'm a little late, so forgive me for that, all right? Welcome to a song in my heart, and the song is She's a Lady. And some of you are probably surprised by that, but I recently heard it was playing on TV, and I thought, the Samaritan woman, yep, she was a lady, all right, and there was a lot to this woman, a lot to the story, and I want to read the whole story to you. But let's go over some of the lyrics of the song. And also, I'm dedicating this song in my heart to my friend Lainey. Lainey is, she is a volunteer here at Proclaim. And by the way, speaking of that, the thoughts and opinions that I express on a song in my heart are mine and not necessarily those of Proclaim FM. She has been a volunteer where I work, and she's just a real sweetheart. And she's been through a lot of things in her life, and she is drawing close to God, and she's just a really cool cat. And she makes the best baklava. Glory to God, let me just tell you. But Lainey, unlike the lady in the song, and unlike the lady in the story, you're a true lady and a woman of God. And I commend you for just walking the journey out with Jesus. It's a very cool thing that you're doing and that you chose to do. Now, before I start tonight, I just want you to know I'm going to do 3 nights in a row. And I've really read a lot about this story. I've thought a lot about this story. I think that there is so much for us to garner from the story of the Samaritan woman, that I don't want to be here forever and a day, because I know that not everybody has all the time in the world. I get that, right? But I don't want you to miss anything that God might have for you and me in this story. A few years ago, before I moved to the southern part of Michigan so that I could work in Ohio, I had a speaking engagement, which actually brought me to the town that I live in, and they said, take the exit that says Samaria. I'm like, what? Samaria? There's a Samaria, Michigan? I didn't know that. And that's significant because the woman in the story, the woman at the well, is a Samaritan. She's also referred to as the Samaritan woman. And that's significant in the story as well. And anyway, we're going to emphasize her tonight because she's a lady. And then we're going to emphasize Jesus tomorrow night because he's worthy. And then on the third night, we're going to see how they meshed. And hey, what are you doing? How they meshed, what God did in this encounter that they had, that was designed by the living God. So good, so good. So there is a town called Samaria. I actually took a photo of the sign that says, welcome to Samaria. I'll try to dig that out and post it for you. I've also switched over to my public page, and there's a reason for it. And so I'm inviting you to invite others to join me on the public page at the insistence of some friends, one in particular who said, we got to do this, Robin. If you want to continue to reach more people and to bless people and to encourage them in their faith or introduce them to Jesus, invite people to go to your public page. It will be so much better. So this is a huge leap of faith, but you know what? God's in it. That's all there is to it. Okay, so She's a Lady. Now listen, this was released in 1971. I barely remember it. But Tom Jones sang it, and he was one of those cats, And so the song, it's kind of interesting when you really stop to listen to the lyrics. Well, she's all you'd ever want. She's the kind you'd like to flaunt and take to dinner. She's got style. She's got grace. She's a winner. So, I don't want to be flaunted by somebody. Excuse me. But I get it, if guys like the way their woman looks, she's the kind I like to take to dinner so everybody knows she's with me. Hey. But it's got a great groove to it, obviously, right? She's a lady. Whoa, whoa, whoa. She's a lady. Talking about that little lady. And the lady is mine. He takes ownership. He's like, she's mine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Absolutely. But it's kind of funny. It says, she's never in the way. What? Always something nice to say. Oh, how sweet. And oh, what a blessing. He says this in the song. Oh, what a blessing. I can leave her on her own knowing she's okay alone and there's no messing. So he is certain of her faithfulness to him. Well, goody two shoes for you, buddy. Are you faithful to her? This is the question. Anyway, she's a lady. And the reason I chose it may or may not be obvious to you, but the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman, had some major issues with men. And we're going to read the story, and then we're going to talk about this woman, and we're going to learn from her. We're going to see some of ourselves in her, for sure. And I want to make sure, I hope it comes up so that I can read it. There it is. Okay. It's in the Gospel of John, chapter 4. When the Lord knew that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, though Jesus himself did not baptize, but his disciples did, he left Judea and departed again to Galilee, but he needed to go through Samaria. So he came to the city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied from his journey, sat thus by the well. It was about the 6th hour. The 6th hour, by the way, is noon. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy some food. Then the woman of Samaria said to him, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." This is what the context says. She didn't say that. She just said, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman?" Realizing the Jews didn't like talking to Samaritans because they looked down on them. They saw them basically as not Jewish. They were what they might have referenced to being, a half-breed, and they didn't want to associate themselves with that. In fact, they really didn't want to even acknowledge them as Jews at all. Looking down on them. Nobody's ever experienced anything like that before, right? So Jesus said to her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is who asks you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." Hold on a second, because I think I have some water and I'm going to go get it. She's back. Speaking of water. And so he knew who he was, of course, and the woman says to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw with and the well is deep. Where do you get this living water?" I mean, they're having quite an exchange. And she's not shy. And yet she's at the well by herself in the middle of the day. She goes on, she gets pretty feisty here. She says, "Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself as well as his sons and his livestock? I mean, who do you think you are?" Basically. And Jesus said to her, "Whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life." And then she says, "Sir, give me this water that I might not thirst, nor come here to draw." Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." And the woman answered and said, I have no husband. And Jesus said to her, you have said well, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. In that you spoke truly. The woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, and you Jews say that in Jerusalem is the place where one ought to worship. And Jesus said to her, Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father is seeking such to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. So they get to the exchange. They have this exchange. A man and a woman, unusual. A Jew and a Samaritan, very unusual. Extremely unusual that it's in the middle of the day. She's going in the heat of the day by herself. You might say, well, why would that be so unusual? Because it more than likely was very deliberate that she did that. And more than likely she did that because the other women in Samaria didn't want to be with her or associated with her, because she had had 5 husbands and was now living with a man who wasn't even her husband. She's a danger to society. She's an outcast. We don't want her around. She might try to steal, your son, your father, your husband, your brother. I mean, we don't want her around. You know how it is? You do bad stuff, you make some bad choices, and people think, well, I'm not rubbing elbows with that person. Now, to their credit, you got to admit, all right, maybe they did mistreat her. Maybe they did shun her. And maybe she thought, I don't want the scuttlebutt. I don't need people talking behind my back while I'm scooping out the water for my family, for my man, for me, for the cooking and everything else. So to avoid maybe confrontation, she just thinks, I don't care how hot it is. I'll just go there by myself. I'll have some alone time, maybe some me time. Maybe I can, sort out some of the things that are going on in my mind about my life and the choices that I've made. I was thinking it's kind of interesting that tonight is the first night of this 3-part series on the Samaritan woman, and that she keeps making the same mistakes over and over again. Have you watched the movie Groundhog Day? Today is Groundhog Day, the 2nd of February. And so chances are it's coming up on TV tonight, and you're going to watch it, and you do it every year, and the whole family laughs, and you have because what happens to the character, Puxatawny, Phil, or whatever his name is, or, he keeps making the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over and over and over again and over again. And the same day, Groundhog Day shows up every single day. Many times over. And then eventually, it's pretty amazing, he finally, bing, makes good choices. His intentions, he wants good choices, but then his intentions are terrible. The way he goes about it is manipulative and terrible. But then eventually he gets it that it's not about him. And that if he can give and be loving and kind towards others, then he's going to get what he's always wanted, which is true love, right? It's an interesting movie. This woman is very similar to that. She's made the mistake. Married 5 times, living with a man now, right? Have you ever made the same mistake over and 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 over again? Of course you have. Because we all have a penchant for something that's detrimental. And we got to get it right. But how do you get it right? You know how they say that, what is the adage? Foolishness or insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? So what happens to this woman, this lady? She has an encounter. She has a conversation. She doesn't even back down. I mean, I think that many women in that day wouldn't necessarily have continued to engage in conversation with this man, But she didn't have a hard time talking to men, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But there was none of that in the story, right? There's no flirtation. There's just honest conversation. And she's like, who do you think you are? You think you're better than Jacob? Come on now. He gave this well to his son. I mean, what? And then Jesus, as we all know, reads her mail. And that's when she perceives and realizes this is an encounter of an unusual kind, of a different kind. And it springs hope in her heart. I was sharing with a friend of mine about this woman, and I've been thinking a lot about her because I've been reading through this portion of scripture, and I actually played the part of the Samaritan woman at church a couple of times, and I was like, are you guys typecasting me? What's going on? But for her to be doing her work in the middle of the day in the hot sun, and it's hot in Israel, come on, and to do that deliberately and be by herself, there are two sides of the coin here. Maybe the other women made her feel uncomfortable. Maybe they did not befriend her. Maybe they told her, we don't want you hanging out with us. Sorry, but we don't like your kind. She wasn't a prostitute. She was just a woman who was trying to get it right, and she just kept getting married, and things were not working out for her. She just married the wrong guy or something, over and over and over and over again. She needed an encounter, right? So what happens to this woman? Well, I think that what brings her to that place in the middle of the day is some shame. And some people would say, well, shame's not a good thing. Those who trust in God, they'll never be put to shame. That's the truth. But if you're not trusting God, you've never trusted God, how would you know that? But her shame is like, I don't want those encounters. I'd rather just go there by myself and deal with it myself, and I'll be fine. But shame, actually, is the beginning of something really wonderful. And it's called repentance. That's the next step. If you're in shame and you stay in shame and you hang your head and you slump your shoulders and you walk away and you think there's no hope for me, well, there's nothing good or glorious about that. But if shame brings you to a place where you say, I need my life to get straightened out, I need help. Well, help is on the way, brothers and sisters. Help from Jesus. He goes out of his way. He had to go through, it says, he had to go through Samaria. Why? Because he had to have this encounter with this woman. Why? You'll find out tomorrow night. Okay? She's a lady talking